welcome back to Along the Road here in Kingston, New Hampshire.
Yes.
I actually never say where we're from. We're just Kingston, right? So
Yep.
Kingston, New Hampshire. We're at First Congregational Church in Kingston. I'm Pastor Josh, and this is
Katie Johnson. I'm the Children's Discipleship Director at Kingston Congregational Church.
And we're so glad you're joining us right now. Last week, we talked about our healthy minds and the challenge of having this healthy mind. We talked about how we grab these thoughts captive, how we are renewing our minds. And I said we needed to set that base in our thought patterns so we could move to the other two parts of our series.
Oh, so does that mean that we don't have to work on the other two parts until the mind's all set?
I think we work on them all together. It's true, but I honestly think it's harder to work on, especially today's, before you get your mind in place.
Or in place.
In the right direction.
Yeah.
You need to have at least changed its perspective and start moving in that. And then that will be a lifelong journey, but then I think the other parts start to come with it. Next week's, I think there's a little combination to how that works out. But definitely this week, we're talking about our healthy bodies and the challenges of having a healthy body, which I think is apropos coming up to a trunk or treat or Halloween and Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's and all the gatherings that everyone's going to have to talk about our bodies. And so I wanted us to just take a moment and say, how do we have healthy bodies? Does that mean that every believer has to be trim and fit and all of those things? And we'll get to that. I don't think that's exactly what it means, but I do think we have to be mindful. There's the mind part of our bodies and what they mean. Paul writes to Timothy, and he does say that there's value in this. When he writes to Timothy in 1 Timothy chapter 4, he's talking about being the servant of Christ and who he is and how he should operate in things. But then he says, for while bodily training is of some value, godliness is of value in every way as it holds promise for the present life and also for the life to come. So he gives this balance that I want people to think of. He promotes taking care of your body, bodily training, whatever that would have looked like for them. I actually don't know, but it might be some type of exercise and being careful with what you ingest and those types of things. That's important. More important is our training for eternal life. And that's, I think, that's why I go back to last week, the mind and what we think. But the bodily training does have value. And I think the way he puts it in there makes me think also of things like money has value. But the love of money that overtakes everything and drives your desires is evil. Bodily training has value. But if your body looks and training overtake all of your thoughts and drive your worth and drive your value, then it has no value in the life of a believer.
Extremes.
Yes.
Is what I hear you say.
Exactly.
In either direction.
In either direction, I think so. So you should have training. Those who have none, well, now you're not taking care of your body.
Right.
And so Paul writes in 1 Corinthians chapter 6, he's writing to the people about fleeing sexual immorality. But he also talks about, because that's how you treat your body. What you do with your body matters. And sexuality and dealing with sexuality outside of marriage is very important, because that breaks the bond that God has placed in people to be married one man and one woman. And the church was dealing with this, and they were having those problems within their church as well. But he says to them that we flee from this immorality. Every other sin a person commits is outside the body. So he's talking about how our bodies matter. If you do other things, it's kind of outside the body. If I steal, it's out here. It's not affecting me inside. So what happens in my body matters. He says, do you not know, in verse 19, that your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit within you? And we tend to forget that the indwelling of the Spirit, now that Christ has returned and he sent the power of the Spirit after the day of Pentecost, actually lives within us in the same manner that the glory of God was at the temple until it left in the time of Ezekiel and wasn't there anymore. And so he says, that is within you, whom you have from God. This is your gift. You are not your own. So you're not by yourself in your own body and your own things. You were bought with a price. Like this indwelling in the Spirit cost. And it's the cost of his Son. It's the sacrifice that Jesus gave. So, if you understand this, you're not your own. This was a big price. Like the indwelling of the Spirit is a massive gift that was bought at a big price. So, he says, glorify God in your body. And so I think that's an important place to begin. And he's speaking sexually. Mm-hmm. He's speaking about how we treat each other and how we look at each other and what we do with our bodies and that. But as you see with Timothy, he wasn't just talking, so he was talking about just your body as a whole, what you do with your body. Mm-hmm. When they talk about sins that prevail, like a sin of gluttony would be a sin to the inside of your body. Mm-hmm. And so, I wanted us to talk a little bit about the challenge of having a healthy body. Yep. And so, I'll leave it to you first. What challenge or challenges do you see either, generically, we don't have to say your own, for people to have a healthy body?
Well, I think for starters, we live in a wealthy country.
We do.
For most people who live here, food is readily available. Mm-hmm. But it's not all the same quality.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the things that are particularly not healthy tend to be the cheapest.
Yes.
Whether it's soda or carbs, the temptation is there all the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, if we are to think of ourselves as servants of God or slaves of God, mm-hmm. if we can't do our job as a servant,
yes.
then the master is going to be very unhappy because you need to be able to do what you need to do.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that also we live in a society that does not have to do a lot of physical labor.
It's true.
For survival.
Yeah.
If you were working hard on a farm all day, mm-hmm. you'd burn off all those carbs.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, there's an interesting documentary on Netflix right now about what they call blue zones. And blue zones are places in the world where they've discovered that have large percentages of people that live into their 90s and into their hundreds. And how blue zones have shifted. Okinawa used to be a blue zone, and now it's not because fast food has come in there, that people don't walk everywhere anymore. Mm-hmm. And then they found ways they could create blue zones and actually increase life expectancy. And part of that is creating. But all of this is whether it's a biblical thing, this is not a biblical thing, right. A Netflix special, is understanding that our bodies matter. Something is inherent in us that we want to live longer. But also something's inherent in us and we just want to enjoy what we have. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the thing. Well, we're in America, I have these things, I can eat whatever I want, I just want to enjoy all of this.
Right.
And that's what leads us into like this time of year where people are like, well, I'm going to have this party, I'm going to do this thing. And we're just not being mindful of what's in our bodies.
Well, and then there's the whole issue of sleep, too.
Sleep is very important.
Because that makes a huge difference. If you don't sleep well the night before, you have less energy, you're less productive,
your body does a lot of work. I think it really comes back still to last week. To be mindful and purposeful about your body. And so anyone who's struggling with anything, and I'm a person who has struggled with my body in the past, the very first thing is to get a mindset that is right. A mindset that this is about longevity. This isn't like, oh, I'm going to lose 20 pounds in the next, over this season here. This is about longevity. It doesn't matter if I lose 10 pounds or 100 pounds. I really want to understand my body, learn my body, and make it healthier than it is today. And I use the word healthier, not skinnier. I like to use the word stronger, mm-hmm. not smaller. Mm-hmm. I like to think of things in not weight numbers, but health numbers.
Yeah, because our society definitely doesn't always think that way.
Right. And there was a show once I used to run on a treadmill, and I saw one season of this show. It was called Stronger. And it was one of those weight loss type of shows. Mm-hmm. But its whole point was about being stronger, not losing the most amount of weight. It's very, very interesting because that's exactly how I feel. Because you can lose too much.
Yes.
You can be too small.
Yep.
You know,
and muscle weighs more than
muscle
fat
will
does.
weigh more than fat does, and it'll help your body more. So you have to like take a mindful approach, and you may look at, oh no, because sometimes when I started, it's like so daunting.
Yeah.
There's so much to do, and so really you boil it down to these maybe two, maybe three things that are very simple, but yet could last a lifetime of discovering. One of them is knowing how to move more.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so burning more calories. But for some people, that is, I walked 10 minutes today, and I've never done that. And you've added that, so it doesn't mean you just got to go and become a runner or a biker or these things. But
yeah,
I'm moving my body with purpose. I'm moving more. I'm starting somewhere. Intentionality, and then so knowing how to move more. And the other part is, what am I putting in my body?
Mm-hmm.
And that is a road that many people might go, okay, I've learned that, and I'm going to cut out fast food, and it make a tremendous difference for them. I've known people that only cut out sodas because they did some research, mindfulness.
Yeah.
They read what it is. They see, oh, there's a lot of this in there. There's these things that I really don't. That's a lot for me. Oh, okay, and they just cut that out, and that made a big transformation. But the problem is, in the mindfulness, you start to learn more about that.
Yeah.
And like we like to say, like in my house, well, once you learn something, if you know it, you have to do something with that knowledge. Sometimes the decision is, I'm just going to have the cupcake anyway.
Right.
Yeah. In modern, not every day, not 4 times a day, but just sometimes. But that's a mindset. There's a purpose to this and a purpose to everything that you're doing. Because my purpose is about this longevity of my body. And so those two things, it seems so simple. How much I move, how much I take in. Or what I'm putting in.
Yeah.
What matters just as much.
Yes, it does.
There was a professor, and I believe he was a Harvard professor, and I don't, this is a story from a long time ago, so I know where it is. He wanted to prove to the health people at the college that it didn't matter what you put in your body, you could lose weight. So he did a calorie intake thing, and he only ate junk food out of the vendor for over a month. And he lost the weight that he needed to lose. With Snickers bars and Doritos and soda, but just the calorie, just this, and he proved that it's not just calorie intake, because people were like, take it less, but also his sugar numbers went up, his cholesterol numbers went up, and his body was worse, even though he went smaller.
Even though the weight was gone.
Right. So it's that mindfulness of, what am I putting in? And so you look at trunk or treat, or Halloween time, lots of candy out there. Okay, no one said cut out all the candy. Well, let me be mindful about which one, this much only, and think about that, because there is a discipline to life. To our mind life, our body life, our spiritual life, a discipline, and it exercises it. So if I don't exercise discipline in this thing, then I'm not going to exercise it across the board. I have to grow it somewhere.
That's right. You have to start somewhere.
Have to start somewhere.
And my favorite biblical illustration of this is Daniel.
Oh yeah, that's true.
He and his friends got deported to Babylon. Completely different culture.
Yes.
And the whole purpose of bringing them was to inculcate them into the Babylonian culture and to the language and the literature, and just because they were recognized as being young leaders.
Yeah.
And, Daniel looked at that food and he said, I don't think so. Yeah. That doesn't match what I grew up with.
What I grew up with, what according to the covenant he should be eating. So Daniel and his friends chose not to.
That's right. And they said, and the guy who was in charge of them said, well, my job is at stake here. I really don't think that that's a good idea.
Right.
And they said, all right, 2 weeks. Give us 2 weeks.
Yeah, give us time, and you'll see a difference.
And if it doesn't change, fine. We'll eat what you want us to eat. But if we stay healthy, then we get to stay on longer
Yeah,
period of time. than
I'm
just
going
2
to
weeks.
move 4 days a week intentionally.
Yeah.
You know, maybe you get a step counter on your watch or on your thing, and I'm going to make sure I hit 5,000 steps every day. And if not, I'll go for a walk to make sure I hit it at least 3 days a week or 2 days. Start somewhere. Start somewhere.
Whatever works for you.
Yeah.
And it's different for different people too.
Yeah.
Different
And
metabolisms.
it's a challenge because, you know, in a household, it's hard because you want everyone on the same plan. And there's a difference between, oh, we're all going on this diet. And I know families that have done that. My mom probably did that growing up. And that wasn't fun. But really, instead of we're all going on this diet, we all need to be aware of our bodies, and this is our lifestyle.
Or we'll have one meatless meal a week.
Yeah.
That's another way to do it.
It's another way to do it, and we're all eating together. And, I mean, we eat, in my house, I know we eat in a very healthy manner. But, yeah, it's one of those things where we have started where we thought we were being healthy, and now I look back at what we ate like 10 years ago, and we both say, oh, man, we really wouldn't make those meals anymore. But we thought they were healthy then, and they were. They were healthier than what we had
in
before.
Comparison.
And so you're going to go on this journey and what you can do and what you can afford and where you are and it's not about being 100% one or the other. It's about that mindfulness that my body matters.
Yes.
You know, and to my ability, you know, for some people, their exercise has to only be in a chair. You know, and they can't really get up from the chair. They might do chair yoga or chair exercises, but they're moving their bodies. And I think that's very important because they see that their body is something that God is using, you know, and it does matter.
Do what you can do.
Do what you can do, and then be mindful of what you put into it. And this season, as you enter office parties and Christmas time, you know, there's nothing wrong with having a cookies and having a pie, but you're mindful of, okay, if I did that, I'm not going to have anything at home for this, or I'm going to be mindful of that, and instead of like eating nervously. And that's part of the mindful thing is, why do you want to eat those things? That was always my problem. The why. Well, you're not really hungry. Why are you still eating? You know, and for me, I was anxious. I was nervous, and that why really matters. Why is it that you want to eat more than you know you should? Find the answer to that question. You go back to that mindful action. That's why, to me, the mind and the body, you can't disconnect these. You have to have the mind. You have to be very purposeful as to the why. Why is it I think I can't exercise or run? Yes, you can move. You know, yes, you can do those things. You know, I run now, but when I started running, I mean, I could barely eke a mile out. Barely. And I'd walk part of it. And I was so excited when I get a mile, and I got my miles down to under 12 minutes. So excited, you know, and that's where it was years ago. And the why mattered, the understanding that I'm not going to let this why, this anxiety, this feeling drive this anymore. And so there was some work done there, and it allowed my body to the reaction for me in body and my loss, I've lost a lot, is that this mindfulness had the result of I understood my body and cared more. And then I cared what I put in my body, understood, because I was taking care of my mind. Well, I got to take care of my body, which takes care of my mind. And it goes back and forth. I'm going to start learning to sleep better. I'm going to start tracking my sleep. All of those things have been growing where I am now. I would have never thought I'd be doing that 5, 6, 7 years ago. You know, I'd be like, who cares? I get up, I sleep, whatever. It doesn't matter. Now I'm like, no, sleep is important. I have to have the right type of sleep. I'm going to sleep. I have to have enough water. And I used to hate drinking water. Now I almost only drink water. I'll have coffee sometimes in the morning, but you know, by a certain time, mid-morning, I don't have coffee anymore. Part of that is that mind-body connection. I'm understanding what it does to my body.
Yeah.
So being mindful of that is very important. And then your reason why you're doing it. That's the why you're overdoing it.
The motivation.
But the reason why you want it to change.
Yeah.
You know, and I want to be a grandpa. I want to be a grandpa that gets up and moves around and does things. I want to be able to minister as long as God will have me minister, and be able to do that. Like we have Pastor Thomas here, who was here before me for 26 years, and now he's back as our part-time pastor of care. You know, he's not a runner, but anyone in Kingston will tell you he rides his bike out here all the time, and I mean he rides 30, 40 miles at a time.
Yes.
You know, and when he's up in Bar Harbor, he's riding his bike up there. It's that what you don't realize maybe you do, but maybe what some people don't realize is the exercise so good for your body, but there's so many chemicals being released in your brain. My stress is lower, my feelings are better, my attitude is better. Even when I first started, and I could barely eke a mile out, and I just was moving, my attitude is better. My ability to look at a challenge and say, I can do that better. You know, they work hand in hand because you're getting these little victories. But it's that long. It was never well, let's try this type of diet.
Yeah. Because when you go off the diet, then you're right back where you were.
So let's try a healthy lifestyle. Yeah. And allow that to start somewhere. Little bits of things. Don't
discount the little.
No. And then mark the things that work, and some of them don't.
Yeah.
We've tried things and been like, no. We've tried that works really well. You know, and I like the results of that. And you become more, once again, mindful of how your body feels instead of ignoring that. Like last week we talked about not ignoring the emotions and being ignorant, but now you're not ignoring what your body is reacting to. And I think that's very important. Of course, maybe without needing to be said, make sure you work with your medical professionals or some other health person.
Dietitian or whatever.
Or if you want to go to a natural doctor, you can do that. There's lots of avenues out there for that. But most of this, I think, in the beginning can be done without going to any of that. And just starting to move a little and doing the things that you know you can do. Community is good. People that encourage you, that are on the same page with you. I think it's important.
Somebody who's been through that struggle before. And can say, look, I know, that empathy goes a long way when you're struggling.
It does.
So finding somebody who's overcome in the area that you're interested in overcoming in. I mean, maybe you don't know how to cook.
Yeah. Got to start somewhere.
And so
we've messed up a lot of meals, but now we make them better.
But that's a goal. I would like to learn how to cook with whole grains more.
Or just cook at home.
Yes. I'd like to cook more from scratch. Yeah.
When I really started dropping the weight, one of the things that surprised me is I would eat a lot, and I mean a mounded plate of vegetables and salad and stuff, and I'd look at that, but that huge amount that really made me, I don't do that as much anymore, but because I'm changing things, but it made me feel the fullness,
which was important,
but had less than half the calories. It was and it was healthier for my body, and my body responded better. And so there's this understanding of that is phenomenal. And I think that's important. So before we end this, I'll ask you a question, and I can answer it as well. What type of exercise do you like to do, and why do you do it?
I play tennis.
Very nice.
I love it. I love the community of it. So I was not athletic growing up. I did not come from an athletic family. I mean, nobody ever taught me how to throw a ball, for instance, ever. I was one of the last kids picked when you played kickball on the playground and stuff. But I don't know. There's something about tennis. There's lots of physical movement, but there's the whole strategy of where on the court do you hit it and the whole bit. So.
Other days, which is actually, I've seen the benefit of that. The main reason I started running was not for my body. It was actually for my mind. Because running, it was one of like I said, I dealt with stress a lot with eating, but dealing with stress with exercising, one, it helps my mind get things away, get rid of things. The endorphins come in and I feel better. I can think about things, where for yours it was you like the community. I like running with my thoughts on my own, and run outside if I can, as much as possible. That has really transformed things, and I used to dread running, and now I can't wait till I run. And that was the journey. That was a journey. Part of it was like, it's good for my mind, and okay, I'll try a little again. And like I said, when I first started, I couldn't even run a full mile. And I was athletic. I played high school high school soccer and track, and I played the first year of soccer in college. But at this point, when I started again, I might have still been athletic, but I didn't have the stamina to do anything, and so I tell people I exercise for my mental benefit, and the side benefit is it helps my body.
There you go.
And that's
Sure.
really how I view it.
Sure.
For sure, and it does. Yeah, so those are the reasons. Maybe someone can tell us how they deal with their bodies, some exercises they do, what you like to do, or if you have any questions, feel free to drop us a line in the comments. We'd love to answer questions. But that's the challenge. Take on the challenge to work on your mind, like we said last week, and then allow that to be mindful about what you're doing with your body. And think to yourself, what mindful thing am I going to do this coming season that is different from before? Because I recognize my body is a temple of God. And so as you do that this week, like I said, we'd love to hear from you. And next week we'll talk about the challenge of a healthy soul, healthy spirit. And so we'd love to, if you have any questions about that or just want to hear something, drop us a line. Other than that, we hope you have a wonderful week, and we'll see you soon.
Bye now.